Well, folks, I tell you what, I don't know what has gotten into people, especially the past few weeks or so. It's bad enough. Oops, get that off the screen. I apologize. But, a few weeks ago, all within the same week, you know, you had a stabbing on a train that happened for no reason other than the fact that a dude who should have been locked up in prison but wasn't for some reason decided it was a great idea to stab a woman from Ukraine and killed her. Then you had a school shooting that happened in Colorado where a few kids were injured, and I believe they said the shooter was dead. Then the situation with Charlie Kirk. Then skip ahead to today. There was a shooting and a fire at a church that happened a few hours away from where I lived, in the Grand Blanc area. For those of you who don't know where Grand Blanc is, this is the town of Grand Blanc right here, just off of Interstate 75, just south east of Flint. Yeah, I don't need to go on and explain Flint, of course, but yeah, that's where Grand Blanc is. Like I said, this is a few hours away from where I live, so yeah, and I think according to what I heard, it was a church that, hold on, sorry folks, I should have planned this video out better, but, I believe they said it was, this building right here, that church. Hey, there you go, the name of the church finally popped up. I don't know why it didn't pop up at first, but yeah, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Yeah, this church right here on McCandless Road in Grand Blanc. This is a church that unfortunately got shot up and set on fire. From what I understand, the shooter crashed his truck into the building, went in, shot a bunch of people, killed a few and injured a bunch of others, and then set the church on fire. Screwed up situation for sure. My heart aches for everybody involved in this tragedy. It's a pretty screwed up tragedy for sure. My heart goes out to everybody affected, and I am thinking and praying for everybody involved. That is for sure. Now, I'm going to try and read this out to you guys. I'm not going to read the entire thing. I'll link this article in the description of the video, but I'll try and read what I can. I'm kind of a slow reader, so I apologize, but I'll read a few paragraphs to you guys real quick. So, Grand Blanc Township, Michigan. 5 people are dead, including the suspect, and several others are injured at a local hospital after a shooting at the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in Grand Blanc Township in what President Donald Trump is calling an attack on Christianity. The FBI is now in charge of the investigation, and the Bureau is investigating the incident as an act of targeted violence, according to Reuben Coleman, the acting special agent in charge of FBI Detroit Field Office. According to the Grand Blanc Township Police Chief Rain, the suspect is 40-year-old Thomas Jacob Sanford from Burton, and he used an assault rifle to shoot at churchgoers. Police believe the suspect set fire to the church and people were unable to leave while it was on fire. Additionally, police say he drove his vehicle through the wall of the church. Officers responded to a 911 call and were at the church within 30 seconds and killed the shooter about 8 minutes later. Grand Blanc Township Police Chief William Rain said, after the suspect left the church, 2 officers pursued him and engaged in gunfire, the chief said. According to the police at 8 p.m. newscast, the church was a total loss. Police also stress that the debris and rubble are not cleared out yet, and the additional victims might be found. When pressed about missing people, officials say the number of unaccounted people, are unknown. I don't know how many people are unaccounted for at this time, Chief Rain said. Out of the victims, 2 had died from gunshot wounds, according to officials at press conference. Where it currently stands, 7 people are stable and 1 is in critical condition, according to the police chief. There were children at the church at the time of the shooting, police confirmed, but there is no confirmation on whether or not any of the victims were children. Now, I'm not going to read the rest of that. Like I said, I'll link that article in the description, but here's some photos that were taken. Man, that church definitely got torn up. Burned down, I should say. Yeah, there's the smoke in the distance. Looks to be at least maybe a mile, maybe half mile away from where this picture was taken. My gosh. Well, I guess that's the end of that. Hold on. This is a picture right here of the truck that was apparently crashed into the church building. You know, definitely a crazy picture. And, of course, the dude, people are already speculating, you know, because the dude drove a big truck. He had American flags on it, you know, just sitting there assuming the dude's political opinions. You know, a lot of people are pulling the, oh, you know, he was a Trump supporter. Oh, you know, he was a Democrat. Oh, well, he was this and that, da-da-da-da-da. Well, judging from his license plate, and I don't want to go too far into frickin' license plate information or anything like that. I probably should have blurred that out in this video, but you notice how he has an Iraq print on his license plate. So, if I had to guess, he served in the military and probably struggled with PTSD and probably wasn't right in the head, unfortunately, you know. There's a lot of people out there that I know that have PTSD and, you know, they struggle with a lot of things, you know. I had a stepfather that struggled with PTSD for quite a while, you know. He was a military member in the past, and, you know, PTSD was something he definitely struggled with after he left the military, you know, that's for sure. But yeah, like I said, this is a picture of the truck that crashed into the building. So, yeah. But regardless of what the dude did, you know, regardless of his political opinions, regardless of his reasoning for doing this, it does not make it okay. I mean, people died in this tragedy. People got injured. There were kids here. You know, you got a lot of people out there that are like, oh, well, you know, this has to do with this. This has to do with that, you know. The dude probably did it for a reason. Oh, well, you know, this is a reason why we should ban guns. This is a reason why places should be doing this. Places should be doing that. Like, come on, man. Do you guys even take time to think about all the people that were affected by the situation before jumping into conclusions? Think about the people who were there that are probably traumatized now because some crazy lunatic decided to freaking drive his truck into a church building and then start shooting people and set it on fire. I mean, do people even take time to think about those who had to witness that, those who were injured or lost their life in this situation? Or do people just not care about all the facts and sit there and think about those, who are affected? Sit there and just bring up politics or bring up the dude's personal life. Like, at this point, I don't give two craps about what the dude did prior to this situation happening. Oh, well, the dude was a Trump supporter. Oh, well, the dude did this. Oh, well, the dude did that. I don't care. What he did prior to the mass shooting, regardless of his political opinion, that does not make this okay. It just blows my mind that, things like this are happening, and, people would rather just jump into politics and just sit there and say this and that. It just... And some of the people that are sitting there jumping into conclusions about this tragedy are the same people who are sitting there coming up with all sorts of nonsense when the situation with Charlie Kirk happened, when he was assassinated in Utah a few weeks back. People are just so quick to jump into conclusions. It's not even funny. Like, people lost their life in this tragedy. People got injured. People that didn't get hurt or killed in this had to witness something very terrifying that probably changed their life forever now because of this. At this point in time, I don't know the names of any of the victims that lost their life or were injured in this tragedy. I don't know if that was mentioned in the article I read. I didn't read the entire thing, like I said, obviously, but it's pretty sad. People are already jumping into conclusions about this tragedy. I mean, it did. Yeah, in the article, it did mention that, Donald Trump said that this was an attack on Christianity, which would not surprise me, because unfortunately, Christians just, they face terrible criticism from a lot of people. Unfortunately, a lot of people who clearly don't do their research, but I don't know, It's sad. I really do feel for everybody that was affected by this. I know a lot of people are going to sit there and be like, oh, well, feeling for the people, thinking, praying, da-da-da-da-da. That ain't going to do jack. That ain't going to solve the issue. That ain't going to do this or that, blah, blah, blah. You know what? I don't care. You know what? If you think that sitting there behind a phone screen or a computer screen judging people for what they say is going to make anything better, you are part of the problem. I'm not saying you're responsible for what happened to the people at this church that I'm showing you guys right now, but you guys sitting there criticizing those who are just, feeling for those and caring for those who were affected by this tragedy. You guys can go suck a big fat one. That's all I'm going to say about that. I don't know too much about the town of Grand Blanc, because I don't really know anybody that lives there. I got some family that live around Lapeer, and I got some friends that live around Birch Run, Frankenmuth, and Vassar, but that's about it, but Grand Blanc I don't know too much about other than the fact that it's just outside of the city of Flint, And, mind you, Flint is one of the worst cities, and not just the state of Michigan, but in the country as well. Not too far behind Detroit. And Flint is not even anywhere near the size of Detroit, nor is it any bigger than Grand Rapids, Ann Arbor, or Lansing. Might be a little bigger than Kalamazoo. I don't know. I'll have to look into that again. I'm not too sure. But, yeah. Then you got the town of Burton, which is where the guy that caused the shooting and burned the church down, according to what the article said, he's from Burton. So now I'm sure some people are probably going to sit there and respond to what I said and be like, oh, well, the only reason you say you don't care about what the guy did before this and that, it's, you only say that because, of his politics, da-da-da-da-da. You know what? First off, I don't care about the dude because, prior to, let me go back. I'm sorry, guys. I'm getting my freaking words mixed up. I apologize for that strongly. What I'm trying to say is, I don't care what the reasoning is for this guy to go and shoot up a church. I don't care what his politics is. I don't care about any of that. You know why? Because this stuff is not okay. Anybody that has nerve to go and shoot up a church or shoot up a school or whatever, I think anybody that does that deserves some of the worst punishments out there. Whether it be they end up getting tortured in prison for the rest of their life, or the death penalty, or anything like that, or if they end up getting shot dead in tragedies like this, all I will say is I hope that the shooter ends up burning in hell. And I don't like to wish things like that, because it's not something that I like to say, and it's not something that I like to wish anything upon to anybody. But I tell you what, man, going to a church or a school or anywhere, especially where there's children, situations like this are not okay. Regardless of what your reason is. Regardless of your politics, regardless of your race, religion, job, sexuality, whatever. I don't care if this dude is the biggest Trump supporter out there, or if he's a hardcore lefty. People need to shut the hell up about politics and take time to think about these tragedies and feel for those and care for those who are dealing with such a horrible situation right now. That's all I'm going to say about that. Now, I've said it before in this video, and I will say it again. My heart absolutely aches for everybody that was affected by this tragedy. My heart goes out to everybody affected by this, and I am praying for everybody that was involved in this situation. To everybody that lost their lives, to everybody that was injured, and to everybody that had to witness this terrible situation, I am truly sorry. May God be with those who are suffering right now. All the family and friends of those who lost their loved ones in this tragedy, or they're dealing with those who are in the hospital right now dealing with injuries because of this situation. It's a screwed up situation, that's for sure. And yes, there was also another situation similar to this that happened in North Carolina yesterday that I didn't know too much about up until I was about to make this video. I don't know too much about that. That wasn't at a church, I don't believe. I'll have to look into that again. I'm really sorry, folks. We're living in screwed up times. I tell you that right now, you know. Be sure to hug your loved ones, because I tell you what, you never know when things like this can happen. Nobody should ever have to go to school or go to church or go to work or wherever and think, man, am I going to be able to make it home alive tonight? Am I going to be able to see another day after tonight? Am I going to be able to... You guys get my point, you know? These are terrible situations, and my heart aches for these people big time. That's for sure. This is Mike, the conservative Michigander, speaking, and I've said what I had to say, and that's that. I'm sorry if I sounded like I was repeating a bunch of things, or if I was speaking gibberish or whatever, but I'm done talking now. You guys be safe.